Hello there guys, and welcome to Mad Doc Minis. In this video I'm going to be fusing G.I. Joe, or as it's known in the UK as Action Force, with Warhammer 40,000. As a kid I loved these cartoons and I always liked the bad guys. Cobra Commander, Storm Shadow, I also liked Destro. All the baddies were my favourites really, and I liked the general troopers as well because they had a more uniform appearance to them. Now they were the bad guys, they always lost because they were the baddies, but I always preferred them. I also like their kit better, like the Hiss tank, the stun reconnaissance vehicle, great stuff. And also, who can forget the famous Rattler attack jet, bit of a A10 knockoff, but really cool. So I start this off by using an assault intercessor undercoated with Rathbone, and I'm going to do a squad of 5 of these. Now I cover that in Leviathan blue like there is no tomorrow. I just slap it on. I do mostly miss out the pauldrons, the chest eagle and the faceplate because these areas are going to be a bit brighter later on. I do make some mistakes, but that gets fixed along the way, as you'll see. Now once I finish that, I decide to give it another coat of that paint, so it's 2 coats of Leviathan blue because I want a more smooth, almost sheeny finish, and it starts out quite blotchy, which is entirely appropriate for some things but not for these. So once that's kind of dried, I go over it again with the same paint all over in those same areas, and that gives me the finish that I'm really after, which is a nice smooth sheeny midnight blue. Now after that's done, it's tidy up time, so I'm using an off-white colour here, a very light grey essentially. If you want to paint white, don't paint white, you know what I mean? So the faceplate, the pauldrons and the chest eagle all get a coat of that, and in particular with the pauldrons I'm quite careful to make sure I do sometimes 2 thin coats to cover up any mistakes that I've made, because the pauldrons actually are going to end up white, as you'll see, or at least the centre part of them. So I want a nice smooth finish there, as best as I can manage anyway. And sometimes to cover up the blue you'll need more than 1 coat. Now after that's done, I actually need to come in and tidy up the weapons a little bit, and for this I use Rathbone actually rather than the off-white. So just Rathbone, which is, remember what I sprayed it with in the first place. So out of the pot, watered down a little bit, and on that goes. Sometimes 2 coats required here as well, but it's quite a powerful paint, this one, so sometimes 1 coat does the job. And I don't want to interfere with later coats of paint, if you know what I mean. So once that's done, I get a little bit spicy and use some Imperial Fists yellow contrast paint, which is the new love of my life, I think. I love this paint. Just really lovely kind of colour, lovely finish to it, as long as it's done over a light undercoat. Now the trim on the pauldrons gets a coat of that, or at least 2 coats of that. I actually go over everything twice. The chest eagle also gets a coat of that paint as well. So it's a nice splash of colour and a homage to the kind of comic booky aesthetic of the cartoons and the toys. And I think it did actually start out as a comic book as well, so there you go. So I'm trying to, you know, be true to that with my colour selection here as best I can. At this stage things are looking pretty good. It's starting to match the aesthetic that I'm after, which I'm happy with, and I need to start thinking about transfers. So I start off with some Indomitus transfers, namely the Dark Angels Assault transfers here, and I put that on the right pauldron with a bit of Microsol and Microset. I then take these transfers, which I got from Wish, which is a kind of Chinese kind of app-based supplier, and they took a long time to come, but they are brilliant and they are very accurate, and so I use those as my chapter symbol. You need to crop these very closely if you're getting the same transfers as me, because they come on a continuous film, otherwise you'll end up with a great big bit of backing on as you do it. They're not like GW transfers, you've got to cut them and crop them very closely for them to work nicely. So once again, a little bit of Microsol and Microset does the trick, and that's my chapter symbol sorted. It's bringing on really strong nostalgia. I'm so happy to be able to fuse these 2 universes, which I really adore. It's great. I'm having such fun doing it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with G.I. Joe and Action Force, if it's not your generation, I'm really sorry. Go and check it out if you're interested. It's pretty cool, actually. Just give it some leeway. It's quite old now, but it was a really good cartoon and comic book series. The weapons get a coat of, this is Flesh Terror's red, which is a fairly close approximation of that colour on the Cobra symbol there. Close enough to make me happy. A little bit more red, I would say, than the kind of almost pinky hue of the transfer, but we're kind of going to hopefully kind of blend everything together later with some washes as well. The bolt pistol also gets a little bit of that as well. And this is just a nice opportunity to add a little bit more colour to the miniature. So moving on, we're then going to undercoat everything that's going to be metal later on with some Black Legion paint. So just prepping those kind of areas really. It's a good moment to remind you as well, if you're enjoying the content, guys, please like and share. It really does help. And if you're not already subscribed, consider giving me a sub. It really does help the channel to grow. So once all that's been undercoated in black, I just want to take this opportunity to actually show you the difference of the colours of the transfers. So the Indomitus transfers here, you can see are really like quite a bright red, a scarlet kind of red, whereas the Cobra transfers are more of a crimson-y, kind of darker red, bit of a pinky hue to them, which you can't really see on screen. So I want to match those a bit more closely. Now I've already put the Assault transfers on, and I'm going to paint those over the top with a little bit of that Flesh Terrors red. I'm not going nuts here, I'm not going into every corner, I'm just going kind of on the inside of that symbol, and that just darkens it out just enough to match it a little bit more nicely to the other side. And it's at this stage I did all the metal work on the bolt gun and the chainsword. You can see here that I did the eyes off screen because it was a bit fiddly, but I did my normal thing. Red eye, a little bit of an orange kind of slit, and then a dollop of white right in the corner. And at this stage, we're going to wash down everything. I'm going to do the chest eagle. I'm not going to go over the main body because that's dark enough anyway. But chest eagle, faceplate, and the pauldrons also get dulled down. And that, for me, really finishes it nicely. The pauldrons are too stark at the moment. And I like that kind of dirty white look. It's really, really good on Space Marine. So I was happy to be able to do that. And that made me a lot happier with the overall finish. I'm going to chuck these guys on a rotating platform soon, so stay tuned and I'll throw some music down for you guys. But thanks ever so much for joining me. Really hope you enjoyed this journey, and let me know if you want to see more of it, because I kind of like to do a small army of these guys. So take a closer look, see what you think.